So, some positive news to share today regarding the official opening of the public inquiry into the events surrounding the case of Lucy Letby. Firstly, I'm going to play for you the official statement given earlier today by Lady Justice Thirwall, which will then be accompanied by the 30 questions that the inquiry will seek answers to.
On 30th August 2023, shortly after the verdicts in the trial of Lucy Letby, the then Secretary of State for Health and Social Care announced that there would be a public inquiry into events at the Countess of Chester Hospital and the implications of those events. On 4th September, I was appointed the inquiry chair and I began work immediately. Today, the inquiry website goes live, and this is the time to say something about our work so far and how we intend to proceed. The terms of reference are on the website. They are the result of discussions between the Secretary of State and me and were produced after consultation with the parents of the babies named on the indictment at Letby's trial and with other organisations and people who can help. They were published on 19th October. That was the official start date of the inquiry, almost exactly a month ago. Our work is in 3 parts. In brief, Part A is about the experience at the hospital and elsewhere of the parents of the babies named on the indictment. Part B considers the conduct of people working at the hospital and how Letby was able repeatedly to kill and harm babies on the neonatal unit. Part C will look at the wider NHS, examining relationships between the various groups of professionals, the culture within our hospitals, and how these affect the safety of newborns in neonatal units. We all know that there have been many inquiries into events in hospitals and other healthcare settings over the last 30 years. The case of Beverly Allett, who murdered babies at Grantham Hospital in the 1990s, comes to mind. Everyone was determined that it would not happen again. It has happened again. This is utterly unacceptable. I want to know what recommendations were made in all these inquiries. I want to know whether they were implemented. What difference did they make? Where does accountability lie for errors that are made? I intend to call experts to give evidence about this. Their details will appear in due course on the website. A wide-ranging and detailed questionnaire has been sent to every hospital in England with a neonatal unit. It is to be completed by both the medical director and a senior non-clinical manager at each hospital. It includes questions about whether there is CCTV on neonatal units, and if not, whether consideration has been given to installing it in the light of the Letby case. Those particular questions arise from suggestions made by some of the parents, and I'm grateful for their help on this and so many other matters. A short survey is to be sent to all midwives, doctors, nurses and managers in hospitals with neonatal units. Responses will be anonymous. It will ask directly for their views on the culture in their units. I hope and expect that those who receive it will find the few minutes needed to complete it. Each response will play an important part in telling the inquiry what people on the ground really think. Detailed requests for information have already been sent to over 20 organisations. A list of the organisations will be on the website. The inquiry rules require them to reply. Statements and key materials are being sought. I'm often asked, when will the hearings start? The answer is that we are working towards a start date in September of 2024. Why not sooner? Because there are 4 other events that we have to work around. First, a large police team is still investigating the actions of Lucy Letby. Second, the police are also investigating whether there may be a case of corporate manslaughter against the hospital trust. My team are in regular contact with Cheshire Police, who keep us informed as to their progress. Third, you may be aware that Letby has lodged an application for leave to appeal against her convictions. I don't expect the application to be determined before the spring of 2024. It may be later. Fourth, a retrial on account of attempted murder is listed to take place at the end of June 2024. If all of those dates hold, there is no realistic prospect of hearing evidence in the inquiry until the autumn, and that's why we are working towards hearings in September. The Secretary to the inquiry is searching for premises in Chester where hearings can take place. I can't yet say how long the hearings will be. That will be clearer once we've determined how much oral evidence will be called. As matters currently stand, it's likely that we'll hear evidence about Part A first, then Part C, followed by Part B. That may change. In the meantime, I will continue to deal with applications for core participant status. The inquiry team will seek, receive, redact, and analyse the documents, instruct experts, and decide which evidence, written and oral, will form part of the inquiry. It's imperative that we maintain the significant momentum we've achieved in the last month, so that we're ready to start the hearings as soon as we can. This website will be kept up to date. It's our principal form of communication. You should find here the answer to most of your questions, including details of all the orders made in the Crown Court restricting publicity about the first trial and about the identities of parents, babies, and others. Those orders are all in force and they all apply to the inquiry. Just two more matters. Both are important. No one can argue with the proposition that babies in neonatal units must be kept safe and well cared for. What is needed is the practical application of that proposition everywhere. In many units, it will require profound changes in relationships and culture. This may not be easy to achieve, but it is necessary and long overdue. The barriers to change must be identified if that hasn't been done already, and those barriers must be removed. Where there is good practice, that must be shared. Bringing about necessary change will require the cooperation and will of all those who are involved in and who are responsible for the babies in our neonatal units, from the ward to the boardroom. The inquiry relies on that cooperation as we work on this profoundly important task. The parents of the babies who were murdered or suffered injuries, some lifelong, live with the consequences every day. On top of their grievous loss, they endured years of uncertainty about what had caused death or injury, and for some, uncertainty remains. All have made it plain to me that they want to do all they can to make sure that no one else suffers as they do. I've already mentioned one of the suggestions they have made as to how this may be achieved. With the help of the inquiry team and all those who will contribute to the inquiry, I will do all I can to make sure that no one else suffers as they have. It is unconscionable that this situation would ever occur again.
The following information is taken from a recently released government document and the 30 questions the upcoming inquiry will seek answers to. On the 21st of August 2023, after a trial at Manchester Crown Court, Lucy Letby was sentenced to life imprisonment and a whole life order on each of 7 counts of murder and 7 counts of attempted murder. The offences took place at the Countess of Chester Hospital. The inquiry will investigate 3 broad areas: the experiences of the Countess of Chester Hospital and other relevant NHS services of all the parents of the babies named in the indictment, the conduct of those working at the Countess of Chester Hospital, including the board, managers, doctors, nurses and midwives, with regard to the actions of Lucy Letby while she was employed there as a neonatal nurse, and subsequently including whether suspicions should have been raised earlier, whether Lucy Letby should have been suspended earlier, and whether the police and other external bodies should have been informed sooner of suspicions about her. The responses to concerns raised about Lucy Letby from those with management responsibilities within the Trust, whether the Trust's culture, management and governance structures and processes contributed to the failure to protect babies from Lucy Letby. The effectiveness of NHS management and governance structures and processes, external scrutiny and professional regulation in keeping babies in hospitals safe and well looked after, whether changes are necessary and, if so, what they should be, including how accountability of senior managers should be strengthened. This section will include a consideration of NHS culture. The following is a non-exhaustive list of questions which the inquiry intends to seek answers to. Section A. The experiences of all the parents whose babies were named on the indictment at the criminal trial. Question 1. During their involvement with the Countess of Chester Hospital and elsewhere, what were the parents of each child told when and by whom about the condition of their baby? What was being done to treat them and what the prognosis was? Question 2. How and when were deteriorations, sudden or otherwise, in their baby's conditions explained to them? Question 3. Where parents raised concerns about the condition and or care of their babies, what was done and what were the parents told? Question 4. When were they given access to their baby's medical records? Question 5. What information were the parents given by the hospital regarding concerns about Letby's conduct and when? What were they told was being done about the concerns? Question number 6. What were the parents of each child told about the likely cause of death or injuries? When and by whom? Question 7. When were the parents of each child told that Letby was suspected of causing the death or injury to their child? Was the Trust sufficiently candid with the parents throughout? Question number 8. What are the views of the parents of each child as to the adequacy of the information they were given at each stage? Question 9. What was the parents' experience of the patient advice and liaison service? Question 10. What are their suggestions for keeping babies safe on a neonatal unit? Section B. The conduct of those working at the Countess of Chester Hospital, including the board, managers, doctors, nurses and midwives, during the period from the arrival of Lucy Letby at the hospital on the 4th of January 2012 to date. Question 11. What was known and what should have been known about Letby's previous work as a nurse when she began employment at the Countess of Chester Hospital? Question 12. What concerns were raised and when about the conduct of Letby? By whom were they raised and what was done? Question 13. Should concerns, including about hospital or clinical data, have been raised earlier than they were? When and what should have been done? Question 14. Were existing processes and procedures for raising concerns used, including whistleblowing and freedom to speak up guardians? Were they adequate? Question number 15. What was the culture within the hospital? To what extent did it influence the effectiveness of the processes and procedures at question 14? Question 16. Whether systems, including security systems relating to the monitoring of access to drugs and babies in neonatal units, would have prevented deliberate harm being caused? Question number 17. Were existing processes used for reporting concerns to external scrutiny bodies where appropriate? If so, what happened and when? Such bodies may include NHS England and its regional bodies, local commissioners, Monitor, NHS Improvement, Child Death Overview Panels, the Care Quality Commission, the police and the successor to any of these organisations. Question number 18. When was consideration given to reporting Letby to the police? When was she in fact reported to the police and by whom? Question 19. What information about each of the deaths was provided to the coroner? Was the Trust's provision of information to the coroner appropriate? Question 20. Did the relationship between clinicians and managers, nurses, midwives and managers, and between medical professionals, doctors, nurses, midwives and others at the Countess of Chester Hospital contribute to any failure to protect babies on the neonatal unit from the actions of Letby? How did professional relationships affect the management and governance of the hospital? Question 21. Did the structures and processes for the management and governance of the hospital contribute to a failure to protect the babies on the neonatal unit from the actions of Letby? Is the management structure and governance typical of neonatal settings in other hospitals? Question 22. What was the board's involvement in the way concerns about Letby were dealt with by the hospital? Question 23. What was the board's oversight of clinical and corporate governance? Question 24. How was Letby managed once concerns were raised about her? Question number 25. Was Letby reported to the Nursing and Midwifery Council, and when? What information, if any, was provided to the NMC, Royal Colleges and any other external scrutiny bodies? What was done by the bodies to whom the actions were referred? What happened as a result? Question 26. What information, if any, was provided to the General Medical Council, and what information was requested by the General Medical Council? What was the result of any referral or discussions with the GMC? Question 27. What happened to those who raised concerns about Letby? And finally, Section C, the wider NHS. Question 28. Whether recommendations to address culture and governance issues made by previous inquiries into the NHS have been implemented into wider NHS practice, and to what effect? Question 29. What concerns are there about the effectiveness of the current culture, governance, management structures and processes, regulation and other external scrutiny in keeping babies in hospitals safe and ensuring the quality of their care? What further changes, if any, should be made to the current structures, culture or professional regulation to improve the quality of care and safety of babies? How should accountability of senior managers be strengthened? And question 30. Would any concerns with the conduct of the board, managers, doctors, nurses and midwives at the Countess of Chester Hospital have been addressed through changes in NHS culture, management and governance structures and professional regulation?